Welcome to this edition of Head to Head. I'm your host, Cam McKinney, and this is episode number 424 of the podcast. And on this episode, I'm talking about Russell Westbrook retiring from the NBA. That's right, former MVP Russell Westbrook has announced his retirement from the NBA. The 9-time All-Star had career averages of 20.9 points per game, 8.9 rebounds per game, and 6.9 assists per game. And as of this moment, his 27,176 points is the most ever by a point guard. When you're talking about Russell Westbrook's career, you have to talk about it in stages. And the first in the early days were in OKC, where in the beginning, it was looking like the Thunder were about to form the best trio in the NBA. You had Kevin Durant, you had Russell Westbrook, and you had James Harden. And that trio made it all the way to the NBA Finals in 2012, losing to the big three of the Miami Heat, LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh. I would say when talking about Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, and James Harden, we are talking about the three most polarizing superstars in the NBA in the last 20 years. I mean, think about it. People have such strong reactions to all three. You either love them or hate them. There is no in between. There are people out there who believe that Kevin Durant is the greatest scorer in NBA history. There are people out there that will defend Westbrook and Harden till the end of time. Nobody has small opinions about these three players. They are all strong opinions about how they feel about these particular players, even though we're talking about future Hall of Famers. Durant separates himself from the discussion in some ways because he's won the NBA Finals twice with the Golden State Warriors. But when it comes to Westbrook and Harden, they are so similar. They, of course, played together again in Houston, which I was always confused by. I mean, why did Daryl Morey think that Russell Westbrook was going to be an improvement over the duo of Chris Paul and James Harden? I mean, that's just doing the same thing over and over again. Yes, Westbrook is very different than Chris Paul, but personally, I prefer Chris Paul as a point guard, especially when paired with James Harden. Getting back to the Thunder, once Harden leaves, it became a duo between Durant and Westbrook, and the media, mostly Skip Bayless on ESPN, begins to talk about how they are a bad fit together and that Westbrook is taking too many shots that should be going to Kevin Durant. Most would come to the defense of Westbrook, and I would as well. What I will say about this duo is it had the issue that most star duos in the NBA have, that it felt like a bit of a your turn, my turn deal when it came to the scoring situation. It's also like, guys, these two were extremely young superstars on the rise. They had egos. They had not yet gone through the battles in the postseason that would come in the future. They were not yet the fully formed stars they would later become. Looking back at those days with the Thunder, the only big what if is what if they could have kept James Harden. I mean, I don't look at that team as an underachieving team. I think Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant played some of their best basketball together. It wasn't always great to watch, but they were good together. The trajectory of Westbrook's career then changed drastically when Kevin Durant chose to leave for Golden State. In the eyes of many, Westbrook became a heroic figure, signing a deal to stay. Then he won the MVP award. That is also when he became the player most associated with the triple-double. That, as you know, is 10 points, 10 rebounds, and 10 assists in a singular game. And when that started to happen, that is when most people began to turn on Westbrook. They labeled him a stat stuffer. I personally think this is just what happens in the modern NBA when a player like that has such a high usage rating. I don't care that much about the triple doubles. Yes, I found it to be really annoying, but it didn't bother me all that much. And I would say I really liked it when Westbrook was paired with Paul George. I thought that was a really interesting duo that should have stayed together. Like, I thought they played really good basketball with one another. I don't even think this is a hot take, but Russell Westbrook and Paul George was a far better pairing than Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. I don't even know how you could argue otherwise. It's inarguable that Russell Westbrook as a player thrived the most when a basketball team was built around his specific skill set, and he began to struggle towards the end when he was playing with the likes of a LeBron James or a James Harden, again, guys who were the face of their respective teams. I don't think that's a diss towards Russell Westbrook. It was just really hard for him to be a role player because he is a ball dominant player. And for him to make an impact on a basketball game, you kind of have to let him do his thing. Not to go back to my Chris Paul comparison, but I think that is the big difference between the end of their careers between Westbrook and Chris Paul, is that I think Chris Paul fit into so many different situations. He could be the mentor to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and then he could go to Phoenix and help Devin Booker make the NBA Finals. Westbrook is just not the kind of player that fits so perfectly into every situation like that. He is such a specific player. My point is, I think Russell Westbrook worked better as Batman and not as somebody else's Robin. He played good with Kevin Durant. He played good with James Harden. But I thought he was at his absolute best when he was the guy and the Thunder had Paul George. Too many people, and I mean too many people, fixate on the triple doubles. The thing that I don't like is Westbrook's relationship with the 3-point line, and I fully understand that he's a victim of the era he played in, but we are talking about a career 30% 3-point shooter. Throughout his career, he averaged 3.7 attempts per game, which isn't a whole lot, but at the height of his career, he was taking over 7 a game. He was just never somebody I wanted to see take a 3-point shot. I mean, we are talking about somebody who, next to Derrick Rose, is the most athletic point guard I've ever seen. You want to see him relentlessly attack the basket. And what has ultimately happened with Westbrook is kind of what happened with Clyde Drexler when it came to Michael Jordan. I mean, in the 90s, we all talk about Michael Jordan, and Clyde Drexler is just another guy, even though he's a guy who made the Hall of Fame. And for this era, the guy is Steph Curry. That is the guy. That is the guy most people believe is the greatest point guard of all time. And then you have Westbrook mixed in with the Chris Pauls of the world, the Dame Lillards of the world. Curry not only has the stats and the flashy plays, but he also has all of the winning he's done throughout his career. That is something that is missing from Russell Westbrook's resume. Clyde Drexler won a ring with the Houston Rockets. I mean, Westbrook is in the same class as the Charles Barkleys, the John Stocktons, the Karl Malones, and the Chris Pauls, the greats that never got there, that never ultimately won the NBA Finals. I hear a lot of people love to say that Westbrook had the competitiveness of Kobe Bryant, but that is where the comparison sadly has to end, because Kobe Bryant ended up winning the NBA Finals 5 times and Westbrook has 0. I mean, that is a fact. I know that sounds cold, I know that sounds mean, but that is where we landed here. I mean, I view him as one of the all-time greats. I think Russell Westbrook would be in my top 10 point guards of all time, but I really can't even put him in the same class as Steph Curry, and the same goes for Dame Lillard. Like, I respect Dame Lillard in a similar way to the way that I respect Russell Westbrook, but I am also somebody who cares about winning. It's why I put Tim Duncan miles and miles ahead of somebody like Karl Malone or Charles Barkley. I mean, the man won the NBA Finals 5 times. He was the face of the San Antonio Spurs during a dynasty. And in the NBA, dynasties mattered. Maybe Westbrook had a chance of being part of a dynasty with the Thunder when they had Durant, Westbrook, and Harden, but that did not happen. And I think I'm somebody who likes most of the aspects of Russell Westbrook. I like his angsty demeanor towards the media. Like, I think they're wrong at times to criticize him. I mean, he is the player he's always been. I think the media has tried to change his game when it was never going to change. I understand what Westbrook is and was a fan, and I was somebody who was really rooting for this guy to ultimately win the NBA Finals, but it never happened, and I don't necessarily put all the blame on him. I think after the Thunder situation, things got weird. He became a journeyman. The disaster was really the LeBron James era with the Lakers. I mean, LeBron James and Westbrook were never a good fit. Fair or unfair, Kevin Durant leaving the Thunder altered the career of Russell Westbrook in both good ways and in bad ways. I think in good ways because he evolved as a player, and in bad ways because he was never really a threat to win the NBA Finals. There isn't one year he was in the NBA after playing with Kevin Durant where you went, this should have been the year Russell Westbrook won it all. No, every year since, he was facing against better teams. Nobody thought when he joined the Houston Rockets that that was going to lead to the Rockets winning it all. Nobody thought he was going to win the NBA Finals as a member of the LA Lakers. The last time people took Russell Westbrook seriously as a competitor for the NBA Finals was when he was paired with Kevin Durant. Again, I really liked the pairing of him and Paul George, but I never expected them to win it all together. Throughout the history of the NBA, it's just really weird to talk about these kinds of particular players who were great talents who ended up not winning anything. I mean, modern names include Vince Carter and Tracy McGrady. Like, I grew up watching those two players. I thought they were extraordinary talents. People still talk about their plays, their dunks, their stats. These players mattered, but in the grand scheme of things, they did not win the NBA Finals. So how do you really talk about them when also talking about guys like Kobe Bryant of that era? Here's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. I'm a fan of the Boston Celtics, and things changed for Paul Pierce's reputation dramatically after he won the NBA Finals as a member of the Big Three with Kevin Garnett and Ray Allen. I mean, Paul Pierce went from being a star player in the NBA to a superstar. He won Finals MVP, and now people look at him differently than they did before. He was always going to be a Hall of Famer. He was always a respected player, but he is in a different category of star. You have to put Paul Pierce ahead of the Vince Carters and the Tracy McGradys. The same way that Steph Curry is so far and above Russell Westbrook. It's a similar thing. Winning changes people's legacy. Dirk Nowitzki was able to win that NBA Finals. We always thought that Dirk was a great player, but that cemented him as an all-time great. I'm not mean or cruel about it. I'm not telling you to call Russell Westbrook a loser. Like, I'm not one of those guys who likes to make fun of Charles Barkley for not winning at all. But when you are having those conversations of the all-time greats, I think winning needs to be a big part of the equation. Like, if all things are equal stats-wise, you need to go to the winning. There's a reason that Kobe won the finals 5 times. There's a reason that Steph Curry has won it 4. And because they've done so, you need to put them far above their peers. I mean, absolutely no disrespect to Russell Westbrook. He deserves to be a future basketball Hall of Famer. When it comes to his legacy, I do think that the casual fan just gets swept up in the overall contempt that people seem to have towards Russell Westbrook. And I feel the exact same way about James Harden and Kevin Durant. Sometimes I feel like the casual fan doesn't really hate them as basketball players. They just love the negative narratives surrounding them. Like, yes, it can be fun to sometimes make fun of James Harden for all of his postseason failures, but at the same time, it gets real old fast. Like, I know what James Harden is, and I know what the James Harden experience is at this point. I think we need to move on, and the same thing happened with Russell Westbrook. Like, at some point, we all understood what he was. He's a guy who is somewhat obsessed with getting triple doubles, and the team usually wins the basketball games in which he gets the triple doubles. And for the most part, I think his obsession of the triple double was coming from a good place. Yes, do I think ego was involved? Definitely. I think Russell Westbrook wanted to win that MVP that he ended up winning. I think he got swept up in his own narrative surrounding the triple-double. So he is a victim of his own actions, absolutely. But I think people got carried away with their negative feelings towards Russell Westbrook. It should be noted we are talking about a guy who barely missed any games. I mean, he played in 80-plus games 7 times throughout his illustrious career. So yeah, I think it's a bit silly to say that their only critique about Russell Westbrook is that he maybe tried a little too hard at the game of basketball. I am somebody who mostly prefers the Russell Westbrook who was with the OKC Thunder. Everything after that, with the Rockets, with the Lakers, with the Wizards, with the Kings, no, even with the Nuggets, I didn't really care for all of that. But the player who was with the Thunder deserves all of the praise, all of the accolades that he got. He was one of the most entertaining players in the NBA. Again, next to Derrick Rose, the most athletic point guard I've ever seen on a basketball court. And there's something to that. There's something to being entertaining. Are you the type of player I want to watch play basketball night after night? Yes, there were some stupid mistakes when Westbrook was a young guard on the Thunder, but for the most part, he was so fun to watch play. And I liked that you could see that this guy cared so much about the game of basketball and about winning. And it's quite possible we've taken him for granted because it doesn't feel like there's going to be that many more of these super athletic point guards who all they want to do is dunk the ball. I mean, most of them are taking 3-point shots. Even Ja Morant has basically given up on dunking. I'm going to miss the athletic point guards like Derrick Rose and like Russell Westbrook because I don't know how many more of them we are going to get in the future. Everyone's trying to play like Steph Curry, and that's maybe both a good thing and a bad thing. But nobody is trying to be, at least for right now, the next Russell Westbrook. And I, for one, think that's a bad thing because I think the NBA needs a guard like Russell Westbrook. Someone who, for the most part, did not care about being viewed as a superstar player. It was just about what he was doing on the court. Again, I like the fact that he could be a little mean towards the media. He didn't want to talk about everything they wanted to talk about when it came to his basketball career. He just, for the most part, quietly went about his job, and there are not enough superstars who are like that. Maybe I could have done with less 3-point shot attempts throughout his career, and maybe I could have done without all the triple-double talk, but for the most part, I have enjoyed the career of one Russell Westbrook, and I am going to miss seeing him play the game of basketball because he was unique. He was a bit of a unicorn. And beyond that, an interesting personality to talk about. Bring up the name Russell Westbrook, you're bound to get a strong reaction. You're either going to get somebody who is a big supporter of him or thinks that he's overrated. There is no in between. He's that kind of star. And I think that is what a superstar is. They make you feel strongly about them one way or the other. And I feel strongly that Westbrook is in my top 10 of NBA point guards of all time. He's probably just outside of the top 5 because I do think winning should matter when it comes to that top 5 conversation. But Russell Westbrook is definitely a top 10 point guard in NBA history. Thanks for listening to this edition of Head to Head. I'm Cam McKinney, and there'll be new episodes of the podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, so please rate, review, and subscribe.